What's going on, guys, and welcome to my Friday Night SmackDown review for Friday, January 22nd, 2021. I am Graham G.S. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. While not every episode of SmackDown's a home run, I think it goes without saying that it is just an infinitely easier watch than Raw every single week. I mean, you could really say that about any wrestling show right now, whether it's SmackDown or NXT or Dynamite. I mean, even Impact, for God's sakes. Raw is just abysmally bad. I'm not even sure if abysmally is a word. I know abysmal is. I'm not sure if abysmally bad is, but I'm making it a word right now just because of how bad Raw is at the moment. But SmackDown I thought was a decent show this week. Not everything on these shows is absolutely amazing, but just the overall tone of the show, and not just the fact that it's 2 hours compared to Raw's 3, but with the fact that they have a lot of storylines and characters that I care about. Again, not every single one. For example, the Riott Squad Billy Kay stuff, not really for me, but they're trying. They have more important women's matches on these shows, and the main event picture and stuff like that I care about than on Monday Night Raw. And I thought this was a pretty decent show overall. So before we go any further, I should probably give a cheap plug to this before we get into the Roman Reigns promo. Check out my exclusive interview right now with the Tribal Chief himself right here in the channel from Friday. Had the chance to interview the Universal Champion for both Bleacher Report and here on YouTube, talking about WrestleMania coming to Tampa this April, his current heel run, and so much more. It was a really, really great interview in terms of, the stuff that he gave me and the conversation we had. I really, really enjoyed it, and probably one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. So check it out right now with the Tribal Chief right here on the channel. It went up on, I said Friday, I meant on Thursday. It went up 2 days ago, so be sure to check out that interview and subscribe for more, not only daily content, but exclusive interviews. Because in 2021 alone, right here on the channel, we've had interviews go up with Roman Reigns, AJ Styles, Fandango, Apollo Crews, and Stone Cold Steve Austin. So if you're not already subscribed, you are doing yourself a major disservice. So anyway, the Tribal Chief kicked off the show here today, for SmackDown on Friday, that is. And him and Paul Heyman. No Jey Uso, by the way, which was weird. I thought he might show up in the main event segment. And there was no Jey Uso, which was odd. There were a couple people missing, so not sure what that's all about. But yeah, so Roman Reigns, Paul Heyman in the ring, talking about how this was great. And Roman is just on another fucking level right now on the microphone. Talking about, oh, my neck hurts, oh, my arm hurts, my leg hurts, my back hurts from carrying this company for the last couple of years. You had to know that line was coming. But he's absolutely right. Now, I know Roman has been only doing the best work of his career since he came back at SummerSlam last August. But I mean, as the face of WWE, he really has been carrying the company, maybe not literally, but quite close to it, for the last number of years now. So he's not wrong when he says that. But anyway, I thought this was great. And he talked about, because I'm so beat up, card's subject to change, right? I might not be able to make it to the Royal Rumble because I'm so beat up. I'm injured and all this other stuff. So basically calling out Adam Pearce on his shit from last week. So Pearce comes out and says, I will not take this from you, Roman and Paul Heyman, blah, blah, blah. Basically, saying that he expected it from Roman, but he wouldn't tolerate it from Paul. So I'm not exactly sure what the difference is there. And that led to Paul Heyman making a challenge to face Adam Pearce in the main event. Now, I like the fact that Roman brought up that Pearce hasn't wrestled in 4, 5, 6 years. I think his last match was in 2014, so just over 6 years. Almost 7 now that we're in 2021. I don't think they had mentioned that up to this point. We all know that Adam Pearce is a former wrestler. He's a former NWA World's Heavyweight Champion. We all know this. A lot of us do. Maybe not all of us, but a lot of us know that he used to wrestle before coming to WWE as an agent, producer, whatever, back in 2014. That had never been established, I don't think, on WWE TV, in WWE canon, so to speak. So I was glad they brought that up, setting the stage for the Pearce-Heyman match, quote-unquote, in the main event, which sounds completely ridiculous on paper, but anything that Heyman and Roman are touching right now turns to gold, so I was looking forward to it nonetheless. I thought it was a great hook for the rest of the show. And then right after that came out Sami Zayn and handcuffed himself to the barricade right next to the ramp. So Sami was out there for the better part of the show. So protesting, he was peacefully protesting with signs which, the Sami character can be hit or miss sometimes. This I thought was great. It was a great hook going into that commercial break and for the rest of the show. So we had a surprise appearance on the show from the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, Charlotte Flair, and the Raw Women's Champion, Asuka, taking on the Riott Squad. Why didn't they hype this up in advance? I watched the WWE preview for SmackDown at like 3 o'clock yesterday, and an appearance by Charlotte and Asuka was not even mentioned. So I feel like either they announced it on social media beforehand, like hours before the show, and I was out so I didn't see it, or, excuse me, or they just announced it right when the show is happening. Either way is not good, because if you're not even advertising it like a day or two in advance, I mean, what they should have done was announce it a week out. And SmackDown's usually pretty good about that type of stuff of, advertising things a week out. Why wouldn't this have been advertised in advance? I'm looking at Heyman's name in my review here. Charlotte and Asuka are two huge names for that women's division. An appearance by them on SmackDown is a pretty big deal. And yeah, I don't like when when the Raw Women's Champion appears on SmackDown and vice versa. But it made sense here because they're the Women's Tag Team Champions, so they can travel between the brands. I was hoping when we got that Triple Threat Tag Team title match on the Christmas SmackDown last month between Flair and Asuka, they had Sasha and Bianca in there, and then Bayley and Carmella. I was hoping they left up the Riott Squad because they were building to a Riott Squad Flair and Asuka match where the Riott Squad would take the titles from them. I don't give a fuck about Shayna and Nia taking the belts back from Flair and Asuka. I don't give a fuck about Mandy and Dana winning the titles. I don't even give a shit about Lacey and Peyton becoming the tag team champions. I think the Riott Squad is the only real genuine tag team among all the other ones I just mentioned, quote-unquote tag teams. The Riott Squad is the best one. They have history. They recently reunited in the last 6-7 months. They have momentum. They've been winning a lot lately. But they made this, I think, a non-title match, and if the champions were always going to win, why not make it a title match? I mean, what did the fuck did Sasha and Bianca do to earn a title match a month ago? But the Riott Squad, despite winning all these matches in the last month or two, did not get a title opportunity here, unless I missed something. But they lost anyway. I was hoping that there'd be some sort of dissension between Charlotte and Asuka, because they completely ignored the fact that Asuka got beat by Alexa Bliss on Raw, and that Charlotte is busy with the whole Lacey and Peyton crap, and with her father. They're not even acknowledging each other's issues. So I guess, we're supposed to believe they're still on the same page, that Charlotte is still a babyface even though she's shown heel tendencies lately. It's just a fucking mess. The match was good. I wouldn't have fed the Riott Squad to Flair and Asuka, at least not yet. Maybe they're going to... I think the Riott Squad, I can't think of another team in this division, and there's not a lot of teams, that are a better fit for those belts than the Riott Squad. The Riott Squad really should have been the team to take those titles off of Nia and Shayna, not Charlotte and Asuka. It's a complete waste. They're not even focusing on the fucking tag team titles anyway. So I put the belts on them, It makes absolutely no sense. The Riott Squad are the ones who are doing the tag team feud right now with Natalya and Tamina. I don't give a shit about Natalya and Tamina. That's another team I don't give a fuck about. But at least it's a tag team feud that has more going for it than anything happening on Raw right now with the women. So I just don't get it. But Charlotte and Asuka did win after unintentional interference from Billie Kay. She came out with them again, pretending to be a Riott Squad member. And I genuinely believe it was accidental because she has nothing to gain from costing them wins and whatever, because she cost Liv Morgan the win last week. She did it again this week. Ruby and Liv got pissed at her backstage. Billie did say, I got you girls into the Women's Royal Rumble match. I talked to Sonya. I got you in the match. Ruby didn't give a shit, and she said, listen, don't bother us. Leave us alone, and whatever. And she walked out. And then Liv said, I'm sorry, and then she followed Ruby out. So that honestly made me feel genuinely bad. It genuinely made me feel bad for Billie Kay, because it didn't seem like she had some sort of alternative motive, or she was, doing this on purpose to tease tension within the Riott Squad or whatever. She genuinely looked like, I don't know if she's a babyface now, but, she wants to be their friend, and she's trying her best to fit in. And by doing so, it accidentally cost them the match on Friday. So, I don't know if the Riott Squad's going heel or what the fuck's going on, but that felt a little weird to me. But the match itself, though, was good, like I said. So we had Daniel Bryan out to cut a promo. talking about, winning the men's Royal Rumble match, kind of reiterating what he said on Talking Smack a couple of weeks ago about how he's never even won a Battle Royal in his entire career, which I think is a shoe, because otherwise Bryan, I feel, would not have said that. I can't think of a single Battle Royal he's won in WWE, and he's been here for a decade, but he said he has never, ever won any sort of Battle Royal in his entire career. That's crazy, let alone the Royal Rumble. So he gets interrupted by Cesaro, who beat Bryan last week, so I was glad they followed up on that. No Shinsuke Nakamura this week, which was disappointing, but we did get Cesaro. Now, Cesaro beat in a big win over Daniel Bryan last week. He did beat Bryan clean. So I'm glad they acknowledged that. They followed up on it. They didn't completely ignore it. And he brought that up. And he also said that he has Battle Royal experience, having won the, now meaningless, Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, the very first one, back at WrestleMania 30. So he has some experience in that field as far as winning Battle Royals go. And Bryan challenged him to an impromptu match without his ring gear on. Bryan was dressed in normal clothes. Cesaro said, no, you're not fit to compete. You're not dressed to compete, so don't bother. I'm going to issue an open challenge instead. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe not Damian Priest, who I know has been rumored to be called up to SmackDown any day now. And I think Rey Mysterio made a comment last week about how, we got backup, Dominik. We'll have our backup take out, Corbin or whatever. And, I thought there would be follow-up to that on the show. There wasn't. Damian Priest was not on this show. We didn't find that out until later on. But even if it wasn't Damian Priest, SmackDown has a very good roster. And honestly, now that I think about it, there was a lot of people that it could have been instead. I guess the idea was always to give Cesaro the win. So I'm thinking now, it could have been Aleister Black, Lars Sullivan, who we haven't seen in months now, Kalisto we haven't seen in a while. I mean, all those guys, the last that we saw them were heels. And I think, actually, you know what? It doesn't fucking matter, because Cesaro faced a fellow heel anyway in Dolph Ziggler. I don't know what this was about. I don't know if Robert Roode is sick or hurt or what happened, but he was on the show, I think, a week ago, wasn't he? Or a week or two ago, when they won the tag team titles. So Ziggler came out, won half of the SmackDown Tag Team Champions. They had a good match. Cesaro and Ziggler work well together. And it's kind of crazy, unless they had a match on Superstars that I don't remember. Upon looking it up, Cesaro and Ziggler have not faced off since 2014. That's almost 7 years ago now, when they had that mini feud over the Intercontinental Championship. They had a great 2 out of 3 falls match at the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view that year. That was 7 years ago. I find it very hard to believe they haven't had a match since then. But I mean, I guess Cesaro was in the tag team ranks for a while. They weren't always on the same brand, so I guess it does make sense. This was a good match. I'm glad they gave Cesaro another win, even though Ziggler means absolutely nothing, despite being a current SmackDown Tag Team Champion. Did they not have any other baby faces on the roster? I'm sure I could look on the roster right now and find someone else who made more sense than Dolph Ziggler. Unless they're turning Cesaro face, which I didn't get that impression, especially if he's challenging Daniel Bryan. Or Bryan was challenging him, whatever. So, and the match was fine. It was just a very weird segment. So, Aleister Black would have been fucking awesome, but then you would have to have Aleister Black probably win. And speaking of whom, I should mention this. I think there was a report from Dave Meltzer, either Dave Meltzer or Mike Johnson, a PW Insider. I think it was a Meltzer thing. Maybe it was Brian Alvarez. Either way. They mentioned that the plan for Black is to bring him back in a pretty prominent role. Now, that's why he hasn't been on the show in a while, and maybe they were waiting for the Zelina Vega stuff to die down, which died down months ago. I mean, that happened in fucking mid-November. It's a late January. People stopped talking about Zelina Vega after Thanksgiving. So the idea that, we got to keep him off the show so people don't think about Zelina Vega, I mean, that's ridiculous because people stopped thinking about her months ago. But anyway, the report indicated that they're willing to bring him back with a big push. They just don't know how to do that yet. Which I call bullshit on, because if you're going to do that, you're going to re-debut him with this big push. They would have fucking done it by now. Maybe he comes in and wins the Rumble. I have no fucking clue. I doubt it. I don't know. I mean, wasn't Rollins ready to come back a couple weeks ago? They advertised his return, and then they pulled it. I don't know. I'm very confused. There's a lot of people on SmackDown right now that just aren't on the show, which would probably explain why Ziggler had to do this match. But, they have a lot of heels, so Black, Lars, the people that aren't on the show right now are heels. Rollins was a heel the last time that we saw him. So they're going to have to turn somebody. They just turned Nakamura, which is good. I would turn Cesaro too. Could Cesaro win the Men's Royal Rumble? I doubt it, but, it is nice. It is nice to see them follow up on the Bryan win. A win over Ziggler doesn't mean as much, obviously, but it's still a good win. It's better than him beating or losing to Ziggler or whatever. I was thinking about this while watching the segment. What if he does win the Rumble? I think a Cesaro-Roman Reigns match at WrestleMania would be fucking awesome. I don't know if they had more than one match. I remember the one match they did have, singles match, on Raw, November 2015. It was actually the match where Cesaro got hurt, and he injured his shoulder, and he was out for like 4 or 5 months. But yeah, so they had a match on Raw. I think it was a part of that WWE title tournament they were doing going into Survivor Series in 2015. And it was one of the best Raw matches of that year, and one of the best Raw matches I've seen in a while. Roman Reigns won, obviously, but Cesaro looked awesome in defeat. So to kind of run that back again, Cesaro was a babyface, kind of doing what they did with Drew, because Drew, remember, going into the Rumble last year, was a heel. And he kind of became a babyface by winning the Rumble, so they won't do that with Cesaro. I would rather see, I don't know. I was going to say I would rather see Bryan win, but Bryan makes the most storyline sense, but hey, if it means giving Cesaro a much-needed push and a long overdue singles push, that would be a fucking shock of the century right there. If they actually gave Cesaro the Royal Rumble win. My money's still on Bryan. You can't go wrong with either guy. Hey, maybe it comes down to Bryan and Cesaro, or Cesaro and Nakamura, because both guys want to get their hands on Roman Reigns. I don't know. But it's something to think about, though. Sasha Banks took on Reginald, I think is how you pronounce his name, Reggie, Carmella's right-hand man of sorts. This was just complete acrobatics. I thought I was watching the fucking circus. And I know they kind of had to work around the fact that it's an intergender match. The males almost always never get offense over the females, understandably so. But it's not a truly intergender match then. I mean, Impact, Lucha Underground, AEW hasn't done much intergender stuff at all, but I don't know. I feel like if you're going to do it, you got to go all the way with it. And I'm not saying Reginald should have been in there beating the shit out of Sasha Banks. I don't want to see that. But it should have been a little more. I mean, this was competitive, but a lot of it was him just jumping around, which kind of got old after the second or third time that he did it. Probably even sooner than that. I was like, okay, can we just skip to the fact where Sasha just beats the shit out of him? Because that's more entertaining. Now, I know Reginald is not a superstar, so maybe it shouldn't have been a competitive match. But I don't know. This was just weird to me. He's jumping all over the place. I didn't have an issue with the match in the first place. I just thought it was weird that, they would drag this on for as long as they did. But Sasha, as she should have, decisively winning, tapping on Reginald with the Banks statement, and continuing to build a Carmella-Sasha Banks rematch for the SmackDown Women's title. Now, when we get that match, I don't know. It could be the Rumble pay-per-view. It could be on SmackDown the week after the pay-per-view. It could be Elimination Chamber. They have a couple of options, but I'm looking forward to it because that first match they had at TLC was actually pretty good. So I have no issue with a rematch before hopefully Sasha gets to Bianca Belair at WrestleMania. We had the Intercontinental Championship defended on the show this week between Big E and Apollo Crews, a rematch from a few weeks ago. This was going well up until the Sami Zayn interference. So, as I mentioned earlier, Sami was handcuffed to the barricade on the ramp at his own doing, holding up the entertaining signs. He unhandcuffed himself. He undid the handcuffs halfway through the match, ran in the ring, and hit a haluva kick on, I think, Big E in the corner. So the match gets thrown out, ends in a no contest, and attacks both men. He was pissed at Big E for beating him for the Intercontinental Championship a month ago, and he was pissed at Apollo for Apollo, cheating to beat him a week ago on SmackDown. So Sammy's the full-fledged heel, Apollo's kind of the tweener right now, and Big E is the full-fledged face. So I like the dynamic of all three guys. I think this is headed to a triple threat, and that should be a lot of fun. I just wish that we get that full-fledged heel turn from Apollo at some point. And I also hope we get the full-fledged actual straight-up singles match between Apollo and Big E at some point. Because they've had technically three matches now. I guess if you count that first one as two, because it ended in the draw and they restarted it. I count that as one match. They've had a few matches now, and neither of them, while they were fun while they lasted, they were kind of cut short. They were on the shorter side. I want to see them go in there and fucking kill it against each other. It's been more storyline stuff so far as opposed to an actual match, but hopefully we get that down the road. But I think so far the Intercontinental Championship picture has been entertaining to follow, so I like this. It wasn't the match I was hoping for, but it was some sort of progression. I hate the fucking non-finishes, but if this is building to a triple threat for that championship at some point, that could be a lot of fun. And maybe, hey, Apollo could pin Sami Zayn, and then Big E has to be in chase mode to get the belt back. I would have no issue with that whatsoever. Not everyone has to have this lengthy run. And Big E, he could always lose the belt and then get it right back, or lose the belt, fail to get it back, and then move on to the main event. It might be a little soon for that, just considering he just won the Intercontinental Championship a month ago, but it's just an idea. So also on the show, we got the Ultimate Athlete Obstacle Course between Bianca Belair and Bayley. This was actually entertaining. Now, I don't love when they do like the sports entertainment segments and shit, these kind of skits, but it worked for Bianca. It really allowed her to showcase her skills as an athlete, which we've seen in vignettes before, but not really on the show itself, but we got that here. It was pretty much what you would expect with Bayley doing the course, not doing it too well, cheating. You had to pick up Chad Gable. She had to pick up Chad Gable and then walk across like where the ringside area was next to the ring. And she picked him up on her shoulders, and she had trouble, carrying him. Chad Gable's not a big guy, so clearly she did that on purpose to drag out the time. They had to play, they had to get a fucking shot in with the basketball. Like they had not dunk, but just get the ball in, just shoot the hoop and shoot it in the hoop and then get it in, and then that would be it. So I think her final time was like minute and 12 seconds. So then Bianca does it, obviously absolutely crushes it. Instead of picking up Gable, and she would have been done even quicker if she didn't have to do this, but, Gable replaced himself with Otis, and then Otis came out, and you're like, oh, it's going to be tough. She picked up Otis with ease. That was really impressive. The whole thing was impressive, but the best part about this was when she picked up Otis and then walked across the ringside area with him on her shoulders. That was fucking crazy. So, this was exactly what it needed to be. I like this. And then Bayley ended it by taking the basketball, throwing it at Bianca, and then beating her up. So the heat goes on Bayley. Bianca looks impressive, and it furthers the feud. I actually really enjoyed this for what it was. And I don't usually enjoy this type of thing. It gave me flashbacks to the old obstacle courses on NXT 10 years ago, which were terrible. But this was still pretty good for what it was. So the whole King Corbin, with Rey Mysterio, we're going to bring in some backup to face Corbin. Was the backup Dominik? Because that was never, I don't think that was even acknowledged. Unless I missed something, that he was bringing in backup to face Corbin. I actually missed that segment when Ray said it last week, and then I caught it after. I actually heard about it this week on the bump. I'm like, oh, shit. And that would, to me, mean that they're calling up Damian Priest. There was no sighting of Damian Priest on the show. I don't know if they're waiting until next week, the Royal Rumble, soon after. I don't know. Instead, Corbin took on Dominik Mysterio and beat him with ease. It was a fun little match because, Corbin works better with the smaller guys. The Ray match wasn't what it should have been. Ray is just older now. It was plotting. They had some weird sloppy moments. This was a lot better. I actually enjoyed this for what it was. Corbin winning with a beautiful looking end of days, which is probably the most protected finisher in the entire fucking company. I mean, everyone kicks out of everything nowadays, but you can damn sure, almost guarantee that whoever gets hit with the end of days is not kicking out. I mean, I'm sure it's been kicked out of before, but very, very rarely in the 5 years that he's been on the main roster for. But yeah, I actually enjoyed this for what it was. Corbin wins. Totally fine by me. This was perfect. So we get to the main event, quote-unquote, fight between Adam Pearce and Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman pulls the old, card subject to change because he injured himself, again, intentionally, at ringside when he was stepping up the steel steps. So he sits down at ringside. I'm figuring Jey Uso's going to come out and beat the shit out of Adam Pearce. Again, Jey Uso was not on this show. Roman Reigns came out instead and immediately laid out Adam Pearce. I thought they would tease it and then something would happen, like Kevin Owens would make the save, which he did. But only after beating the shit out of Adam Pearce for a little while. So Kevin, I guess, couldn't make the save sooner, I guess. But yeah, Roman got in the ring, delivered a Superman punch for the ages to Adam Pearce, beat the shit out of him for a little while, and then Kevin Owens made the save, and they brawled, and He attacked him at ringside, he did a couple of, at least one or two stunners to Roman in the ring. And then he brought him over to ringside and hit him with a pop-up powerbomb right through the commentary table, which was a cool spot. So Owens finally gets one over on Roman. I mean, the guy, we know he's not going to win the championship. He could, I guess, and then Roman could win it right back, like right after. But we know, for the most part, that Owens probably will not win the belt at Royal Rumble. They had to give him something, because he's had his ass kicked by these guys every fucking week for like a month or two now. He needed to get the upper hand, which he finally did this week. Finally. And it wasn't over just Jey Uso, it was over Roman Reigns. So that's a pretty big deal. I love the ending of the show this week. I thought the brawl was really well done. Everyone playing their roles really, really well, whether it's Roman, Pearce, Heyman, Owens. I thought this was great. Hey, maybe next week we get Kevin Owens and Adam Pearce versus Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman. And honestly, as ridiculous as that sounds on paper, it just might work. I guess it would kind of give away Owens and Roman before the Rumble. Just because we're not going to see Pearce in there with Roman all that much, and we're not going to see Owens in there with Heyman all that much. But they've been teasing the Owens-Heyman thing for so long now, in terms of like Owens really wants to get his hands on Heyman, that I think a payoff would be cool with Owens beating the shit out of Heyman for a little while before Roman comes in and goes after Owens. So just an idea. Some people might not like that. I didn't really care about getting Roman Reigns versus Adam Pearce at the Rumble, but if they did it on SmackDown, that's a different story. I thought it was a good episode of SmackDown overall. Really not a lot that I didn't like. The Banks and Reginald stuff, I really don't care about. The Charlotte and I like Sasha and Carmella, but the match itself, it was weird. That was probably the one part of the show I just didn't really like at all. But the Roman Owens, Pearce Owens stuff was really good. The women's tag team match was solid. I don't really care about Charlotte and Asuka as tag team champions, but it was a good match. Cesaro and Ziggler was what it needed to be. The Bryan promo was good. Big E and Apollo further that story. Bianca and Bayley was what it needed to be. Corbin and Mysterio was what it needed to be. And the main event segment was great too. So I would give the show a thumbs up. I enjoyed SmackDown. Again, some episodes are better than others, but this was still a pretty straightforward and successful show. Very little filler, and it did a lot in furthering multiple feuds. So I like the show. And again, an infinitely easier watch than Monday Night Raw. That should go without saying. Thank you guys, as always, for checking out my reviews of SmackDown right here on the channel and on WrestleRant.com. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content, including for my Talking Smack review later today. Tomorrow... What's tomorrow? I think the Bianca Belair Chronicle goes up tomorrow, so I'm probably going to be reviewing that. I'll be watching that and reviewing that probably tomorrow. Monday, I'll probably also review the Pat Patterson review for that day. We have a WandaVision Season 1 Episode 3 review going up on Monday too. And the Roman Reigns interview went up the other day, so if you're not already subscribed and you didn't already hit the bell button to be notified every time a new video goes up, what the hell are you waiting for? Do it right now. Have an awesome weekend, guys. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.